In the world of the Windsors, truth is a commodity, and Meghan Markle has been trading in counterfeit currency for decades. The ulcer didn't enter the royal family to serve. She entered to possess. Her primary weapon? Manufactured youth. The crack in the foundation began with a dusty page from 17 magazine, March 1997. In stark black and white, the caption reads, Meghan Markle, age 21. If the official narrative she sold to the Queen and the world were true, that she was born in 1981, she would have been a 15-year-old schoolgirl in 1997. That 6-year gap is not a Hollywood vanity, it is global fraud. She didn't just shave off a year for a rom-com role, she falsified her identity to breach the highest levels of the British state. The deception extends into the halls of Northwestern University. While Meghan presents herself as the fresh-faced graduate of 2003, the photographic evidence tells a darker story. The Salsa Club files, group photos from her university days, show her standing alongside classmates who are now in their early to mid-50s. The math of deceit. Unless Meghan was a child prodigy attending university with people a decade older than her, the math confirms the 1975 birth year. She wasn't a 20-something looking for a break in Hollywood. She was a 30-something briefcase girl, on deal or no deal, desperately clinging to a system that had already aged her out. Her survival depended on a chronological purge. When the 1997 receipt went viral, the response from Montecito wasn't one of hurt. It was a total psychological meltdown. This wasn't about vanity, it was about the violation of contracts. The financial kill zone. Her $100 million deals with Netflix and Spotify were built on the authentic Meghan brand. If she lied about her legal date of birth on official documents, those contracts are voidable for fraud. The legal panic. Reports from inside the Sussex fortress describe screaming matches and frantic calls to PR teams. The ulcer knows that if the birth year falls, every other claim, the racism, the mental health crisis, the trapped narrative, falls with it. The ultimate tragedy of this deception is Harry. He didn't marry a wife, he married a carefully curated script. The puppeteer. If she is indeed 48 or 50, she is a woman with nearly a decade more experience in manipulation than Harry ever realized. The sacrifice. Harry gave up his family, his military honors, and his country to protect a woman whose actual birth date he may not even know. Meghan caked her ulcer into Harry's psyche, convincing him the world was the enemy, while the real threat was sleeping in the room next door, counting the profits from his betrayal. The legal battle in Florida, spearheaded by Samantha Markle, has evolved from a simple defamation suit into a forensic ambush. Samantha's legal team has filed a motion for discovery of vital records, specifically targeting the original, unredacted birth certificate and the 1995 passport application of Rachel Meghan Markle. In the world of the Windsor ulcer, this is the kill zone. Unlike a PR statement or a friendly interview with Oprah, a court subpoena cannot be charmed. If the documents reveal a 1975 birth date, the ulcer is exposed not just as a liar, but as a perpetrator of identity fraud against the British state. Every visa, every marriage license, and every diplomatic security clearance she obtained was based on a falsified timeline. The legal immunity of the Duchess is about to meet the cold reality of a Florida courtroom. Across the Atlantic, Prince William, acting under the soft Regency protocols, has authorized a shadow audit of the 2018 royal wedding expenses. The objective is clinical, to determine if the $32 million of taxpayer money spent on the fresh-faced American bride was obtained under false pretenses. The palace's legal counsel is exploring a voidable marriage clause. If Meghan misrepresented her age and previous marital status to the sovereign, the late Queen Elizabeth II, to secure the marriage license, the union itself could be deemed legally precarious. William isn't looking for a divorce for his brother, he is looking for an annulment of the brand. By proving the ulcer was never legitimate, the Crown can surgically remove her titles without a messy parliamentary debate. The most chilling aspect of the chronological fraud reaches into the Sussex nursery. If Meghan is indeed nearing 50, the narrative regarding the natural births of Archie and Lilibet begins to dissolve under biological scrutiny. The Windsor ulcer has always been protective of the birth records, but the age leak has forced the public to revisit the mysterious 2019 birth certificate amendment. Was the name change a distraction from a more damning detail? Did the original records list a different age for the mother, one that would have made a natural birth a medical miracle? The Apollo files suggest that the ulcer didn't just lie about her past, she lied about the very lineage she used to anchor herself to the crown. Inside the $14 million mansion, the ulcer is in a state of total siege. The 1997 magazine page has become her telltale heart, a rhythmic drumming of truth that she cannot silence. Her PR teams are resigned, their kindness narrative shattered by the math of a 1975 birth year. Harry, meanwhile, is beginning to notice the discrepancies in her stories, the childhood memories that don't align with the 1980s, the references to cultural events that only a teenager of the 90s would know. The puppet is starting to see the strings, and the strings are tied to a woman who is nearly a decade older than the person he thought he sacrificed his life for. For years, Trevor Engelson, the man Meghan Markle erased with a FedExed ring, has been the silent vault of the Sussex prehistory. Bound by a multi-layered non-disclosure agreement, NDA, and a desire to move on, he remained a ghost. But in the high-stakes theatre of the Florida discovery process, an NDA is a paper shield against a federal subpoena. The deposition, held in a windowless room in Los Angeles, was not a conversation, it was a forensic extraction. Under the penalty of perjury, the first husband was forced to produce the one thing the Windsor ulcer feared most, the primary source documents. Trevor's testimony centered on a cache of early career records from the late 1990s. While Meghan's official narrative claims she was a struggling teenager in 1997, Trevor's production of their early travel logs and shared lease agreements from 1999, 2002 paints a different picture. The passport discrepancy. Trevor testified to seeing a passport in 2004 that listed a birth year of 1975. The union records, he produced copies of her early SAG, Screen Actors Guild, applications from the late 90s. In these documents, the ulcer hadn't yet learned to manipulate the timeline. She was an adult woman in her early 20s, not the 15-year-old child the 1981 narrative requires her to be. The calculated purge Trevor described a moment in 2011, just before Suits took off, where Meghan allegedly spent weeks cleaning her digital footprint and instructing her then management to standardize her birth year to 1981 across all casting platforms. The deposition took a darker turn when the questioning moved to the first marriage. Trevor revealed that the timeline of their relationship, as presented to the palace in 2017, was methodically condensed By shifting her birth year to 1981, Meghan was able to portray her years with Trevor as a youthful mistake, rather than the decade-long, calculated partnership it actually was. Trevor's testimony suggests that Meghan didn't just lie to Harry about her age. She lied to him about the depth of her history. She wasn't a fresh-faced ingenue when she met Trevor. She was a woman who had already lived a full adult life that she deemed brand toxic for her royal aspirations. The transcript of the Engelson deposition was leaked to the soft Regency inner circle within hours. For Prince William, this is the smoking gun. It proves that the ulcer entered the royal family under a fraudulent identity. In the eyes of the British state, if the bride lied on the formal declarations required for a royal wedding, the marriage itself stands on a legal void. The ulcer isn't just a difficult family member. She is a common fraud who used a falsified biography to access the sovereign's private estates and the British taxpayers' coffers. Inside the Montecito fortress, the silence is deafening. Harry has reportedly seen the summaries of Trevor's deposition. The puppet is beginning to realize that the woman he calls M is a character created in a casting office, not the person he exchanged vows with. Every childhood story she told him, every struggle she recounted, is now being filtered through the lens of a 6-year lie. The Windsor ulcer is no longer just an irritant, it is a systemic failure. And Trevor Engelson just handed the surgeon the scalpel. The $14 million mansion in Montecito, once marketed as a fortress of freedom, has become a theatre of cold dread. Outside, the Pacific fog rolls in, thick and suffocating. Inside, on the heavy marble kitchen island, lies a printed stack of papers, the summary of the Trevor Engelson deposition. For Prince Harry, the puppet, who has spent years defending his wife against the world, the math on page 14 is a physical blow. The birth year 1975 is highlighted in yellow, a neon sign flashing the end of his reality. The confrontation didn't happen with shouting. It happened with the clinical precision of a cross-examination. Harry, his face a mask of pale exhaustion, pointed to the deposition. He didn't ask why she lied. He asked who she actually was. Meghan's reaction was not one of tearful apology, but of defensive aggression. The ulcer did what it does best. It attacked the messenger. She dismissed Trevor as a bitter ghost and the legal process as a misogynistic witch hunt. But the gaslighting failed to ignite. Harry wasn't looking at the press or the haters. He was looking at his wife's 1999 union records. The realization hit him like a Highland frost. If she was 21 in 1997, she had lived an entire decade of adulthood, relationships, legal contracts, and professional maneuvers that he was never told about. The woman he protected as a vulnerable ingenue was actually a seasoned operative who had been playing the Hollywood game since before he even left Eton. The fracture deepened as Harry voiced the question the palace's lawyers had already answered. Was our marriage legal? In the UK, a marriage license obtained under a fraudulent identity, including a falsified date of birth, is a legal minefield. If the Duchess misrepresented her fundamental biography to the registrar and the sovereign, the union stands on a foundation of sand. Harry realized that the soft Regency in London wasn't just being mean, they were being forensic. William didn't need to divorce them, he just needed to wait for the fraud to be proven. If the marriage is declared a legal fiction, the titles, the line of succession, and the Sussex brand vanish overnight. The ulcer would be surgically removed not by a scandal, but by a birth certificate. By midnight, the Montecito fracture was complete. For the first time in their history, the united front had broken. Harry reportedly moved his belongings to the guest wing, a physical distance mirroring the chasm of trust. The Windsor ulcer is now hemorrhaging. Meghan, realizing her primary shield, Harry's blind loyalty, has cracked, has retreated into a frantic digital defense. She is no longer fighting for the crown, she is fighting to keep the puppet from walking out the door and into the waiting arms of the palace's legal team. As Harry sits alone in the dark, he realizes the most terrifying truth of all. The never-before-seen Valentine's photo of Lilibet wasn't a celebration of family. It was Meghan's attempt to anchor him. She used the children as a visual chain, a reminder of what he stands to lose if he admits the chronological fraud is real. But the puppet is finally looking at the strings, and the strings are made of 1990s lies. The delivery didn't come via a royal courier or a gold-embossed envelope. It arrived as a single, cryptid file on a dedicated hardened tablet delivered to the Montecito gate by a private security firm with ties to the Grey House. The file contained two things: the full, unredacted transcript of the Trevor Engelson deposition and a legal document drafted by the King's private solicitors. This was the palace ultimatum. Prince William, acting as the architect of the soft regency, laid out the terms with the clinical coldness of a surgeon removing a tumour. The offer was a one-way ticket back to the safety of the institution, but the price was total. The annulment: Harry must sign a declaration of consensual annulment based on the chronological fraud. By admitting the marriage was based on a fundamental misrepresentation of identity, the 1975 as 1981 birth year, the Crown would declare the union void ab initio from the beginning, the surgical separation. The ulcer would be legally stripped of all titles, styles, and association with the House of Windsor. She would be returned to her status as a private American citizen, but with a severance package that came with a global, ironclad gag order. The line of succession: the children's status would be stabilized under a private act of council, ensuring they remain under the protection of the Crown, provided they are relocated to the UK for educational and security purposes. The ultimatum was backed by the nuclear option. If Harry refused, the palace would release the Engelson deposition to the global media, accompanied by a formal statement from the Home Office regarding identity fraud and the violation of the sovereign's trust. The ulcer would not just be divorced, she would be criminally exposed. The fraud would invalidate her US tax filings, her business contracts with Netflix, and her legal standing in the ongoing defamation suits. William wasn't offering a deal, he was offering a choice between a quiet exit and a public execution of her entire brand. Inside the guest wing, Harry stared at the tablet. The puppet finally understood the gravity of his position. To save himself and his children's future, he had to participate in the destruction of the woman he had sacrificed everything for. He realized that the soft regency had played the long game. They didn't fight the Meghan narrative with PR, they fought it with forensics. They waited until the ulcer had built a house of cards so high that the revelation of a 6-year age gap would cause the entire structure to implode under its own weight. On the other side of the mansion, Meghan, unaware of the specific terms but sensing the shift in the atmosphere, began a frantic series of calls to her legal team. She is reportedly preparing a counter-strike involving the Apollo files, but her leverage is crumbling. A whistleblower cannot be trusted if their very identity is proven to be a lie. The Windsor ulcer is about to be excised. The only question remains, will Harry hold the scalpel? The clock on the Montecito mantelpiece struck 07:55 GMT. Outside, the low hum of a black SUV idling at the gate was the only sound. In the guest wing, Prince Harry, the puppet, who had finally found his own hands, picked up the Mont Blanc pen. The paper before him wasn't a divorce decree. It was a declaration of consensual annulment. By signing, Harry wasn't just ending a marriage, he was acknowledging the chronological fraud. He was admitting that the woman he married in 2018, the person the world knew as the 36-year-old Meghan Markle, was a legal fiction born from the 1975 files of a Hollywood casting office. The pen scratched against the parchment, Henry Charles Albert David. With those 4 words, the ulcer was surgically detached from the British state. Meghan burst into the room at the exact moment the ink dried. She wasn't the polished duchess of the Netflix specials. She was a woman facing the total erasure of her identity. She saw the signed papers, the open tablet, and the one-way ticket confirmation on the screen. "You can't do this," she hissed, her voice a jagged edge of desperation. "I made you. Without me, you're just a spare in a grey suit." Harry looked at her, not with anger, but with the cold, clinical detachment of a man seeing a stranger for the first time. "You didn't make me, he said quietly, sliding the papers into the secure courier pouch. "You just rented my name to hide your real one. I'm going home to the family you tried to destroy. You're staying here with the person you actually are, whoever that is." The excision was instantaneous and brutal. As Harry's SUV sped toward the private airfield where the Royal Air Force jet awaited, the palace's digital kill switch was flipped. The title purge. At 08:01 GMT, the royal website was updated. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex page vanished. In its place was a brief legalistic notice stating that the marriage had been annulled due to fundamental misrepresentations of identity. The financial implosion. Within the hour, Netflix and Spotify's legal teams, alerted by the palace's forensic audit, issued force majeure notices. The contracts were voided. The $100 million war chest was frozen. The ulcer was no longer a business partner, she was a liability. The 1975 revelation. The palace released a clarification of record to the global press, acknowledging the Trevor Engelson deposition. The world was finally presented with the math. Meghan Markle, the young bride, was nearing 50. The fresh-faced narrative was dead. The final scene of the Windsor ulcer took place in the grand, empty hallway of the $14 million mansion. Meghan stood alone, surrounded by the luxury products of her Valentine's launch, the jams, the linens, the rose-tinted dreams that no one was buying anymore. The children were gone, secured under the guardianship of the Crown protocols and already halfway across the Atlantic. The puppet had escaped. The host had survived. Meghan walked to the mirror and looked at the face that had fooled a kingdom. Without the royal filters, without the Hollywood lighting, and without the lie of 1981 to shield her, she was just an actress who had played the role of a lifetime and forgotten when to take off the mask. The fog rolled back in, swallowing the mansion. The ulcer had been